Brandon Aiyuk is at the 49ers facility, but why? Plus, I have 5 incredible 49ers stats to amaze your friends, and I'll get Michelle's take on how I did in the debate yesterday. Not quite sure I invoked Majuk level destruction, but we'll get to all that and more on today's show. What is good, everybody? Welcome to the Gold Diggers podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network, part of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. She is Mimosa Michelle Majuk, not drinking a mimosa today. Very upsetting, Michelle.
White Claw Michelle Majuk today. It doesn't ring as well, and it's not as delicious, but it's a black cherry White Claw. It's pretty good. It'll do the job today.
Disappointing. I feel like something is just off. The juju is not good right now, and I'm making it all your fault.
That's fair. You know, Brandon Aiyuk is wearing a Pirates hat today. I understand if you feel a little bitter, you know, especially towards me. That's fair.
He was wearing okay, so let's get to that quickly. We got I saw it. Brad Graham tweeted it out. Brandon Aiyuk is at the 49ers facility today. If you're watching the stream, you could see him driving in the car. You know what? I didn't even notice the Pirates hat on his head.
Pittsburgh, baby.
Interesting. That adds a whole new layer to this because I was, feverishly texting Michelle like, hey, look, Brandon Aiyuk is, we may have to do an instant reaction show because Brandon Aiyuk might sign his contract. Look, he's going to the facility. And you were like, no, it doesn't matter. But now that this Pittsburgh Pirate hat is in there, now I don't know what to think.
You know he's not going to sign his contract with a Pittsburgh Pirate hat on. That would be pretty crazy.
That's true, right? That would be bold. Let's just say that. It would be a very bold choice by Aiyuk. But why would he be at the facility? That's what I don't understand. Like,
I told you, he's probably just going to work out. Now, I don't know for sure if players go work out in June, but I don't think that sounds that crazy, right? Like, they probably have the best workout facility that you can find. Also, you won't see fans out and about because you're in your workout facility at your job. I don't know. It just makes sense to me. He'd just be going to work out. It wouldn't make sense to me that he's going to sign a contract that we haven't heard about. When does that happen? When do we ever learn about a contract when they're signing the contract in the facility? That never happens.
Usually one of the national insiders will get the 5-minute heads up, right? They'll get the favor. The team will let them know to tweet it out. And then all of a sudden we'll see the team tweet out like a picture, usually with that stupid red pen that the 49ers have where they're signing the contract. I get you, he could be, but I just feel like in the 40-day dead period, I'd be surprised if guys were at the facility, especially guys that are holding out because they want more money. But yeah, I mean, I haven't seen anything from anybody online to indicate anything one way or the other. So I have to believe you're right.
Does Aiyuk live in San Francisco or around that area? Or would he be?
I don't know where he actually lives. So I can't.
If he lives there, then that's the best place to work out. Now, if he has a home that he's normally at in the off season, then yeah, I guess it'd be weird he's there, but I'm pretty sure he lives around that area.
The Pittsburgh Pirates hat. Not an accident.
That's not really a team you want to be rooting for. They suck, but listen, Pittsburgh, baby.
It's a cool hat though. Pirates hat is a very nice looking hat.
The P is really nice. I kind of wish the Steelers could steal that, the P for Pittsburgh. I don't like the Steelers logo. It's pretty ugly.
It's a weird logo, and the fact that it's only on one side of the helmets is a whole other thing. We could be like frenemies because if Aiyuk gets traded to the Steelers, what are we going to do? I feel like that would put a strain on our relationship.
Listen, I really don't want Brandon Aiyuk to get traded because I want Brock Purdy to be the very best he can be. And obviously taking away a guy's wide receiver 1 is never going to be good for any quarterback to hit their full potential. So I want Brandon Aiyuk to stay with the 49ers if that was my first choice. But if they're not going to sign him and if he is to be traded, then the only way that I will still be happy is if he goes to the Steelers. But if he goes to the Commanders, I'm going to be so upset.
Oh, yeah. No, that's especially going to Adam Peters. That would just feel like an additional kind of law. It would just be all sorts of bad. And I feel like, again, the trade thing, it's out the window now. Unless you're getting a staggeringly good player back, I feel like the two options are he either signs an extension or he plays mad on the 5th-year option. That's where we are at this point.
This wouldn't happen on the Steelers side, I don't think. But would you trade Aiyuk for George Pickens in a first?
And a first? Hell yeah. Oh, I would absolutely take that. I would take Aiyuk for a first, but Pickens and a first? Yeah. Yes, please.
What about Pickens in a second?
Yeah, I think I would do that too. I think that receiver is easier to replace than it ever has been. I think Kyle thinks that he can manufacture it, and they drafted Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing for a reason. So all those things combined would be enough for me.
He really just needs to stay though. Just get him under contract. Because you just can't. The issue is Deebo Samuel's just not that type of wide receiver that you want to be your wide receiver one. And maybe if they see enough out of Ricky Pearsall, like early on, that they feel good that he can take that, possession wide receiver role, be a really good route runner. Maybe they feel better about moving on from Aiyuk, but just I don't know. They need to figure it out. Even if it was like what they did with Saquon Barkley last year, like give him a bigger contract just this 1 year, and then kind of let him explore options next year. But they need to get him under contract for at least this year. I mean, I know he's already under contract, but they need to make him happy for this 1 year.
Well, don't forget, he is getting a big raise. He's going to play this year for $14 million. Last year, his number was about $4 million. So he is getting a big raise.
When Gabe Davis is making the same amount of money as you, it's not enough.
Gabe Davis out here just getting strays.
I actually really like Gabe Davis. Is like,
sure.
But he's not, he's not close to Aiyuk.
JCG 1987 says Pickens would be a huge downgrade in the team first department. Daza, are we really willing to bet in a Super Bowl or bust year that Pearsall can replace Brandon Aiyuk and isn't Dante Pettis 2.0? I mean, do they want to make that bet? No. Are they prepared to make that bet? I think they
Dante
are.
Pettis' best year was his rookie season, man.
Yeah.
He was going to be a star. He looked like a stud. And then I don't know what happened to him.
Nick Eller, YouTube channel member, fired up. Let's go. Aiyuk in the building. Warriors going for Paul George and Giants taking down the Dodgers. Give me 2 out of 3 this weekend. At least he's flexible.
Well, you would like who cares if the Giants beat the Dodgers this week? And the MLB schedule is like 5,000 games. Like they can lose one, right? So you're going to want the other 2.
JCG says the way Michelle talks about Brandon Aiyuk disappearing in some games, you'd think he was Gabe Davis. Boom! Love it.
I say you cannot. It's never about Brandon Aiyuk's talent. It's about how they just don't use him. Like they can't pay a guy $30 million a year that they're going to just let disappear in games because they're not utilizing him at all. Like they take him out of the game plan. And that's my whole thing. It's not that Aiyuk would be taken out if he was with a team that made him like a CeeDee Lamb where he's always the focal point of the offense. But that's why you can pay a CeeDee Lamb. That's why you can pay a Justin Jefferson or a Tyreek Hill because they are your focal point. That's my biggest issue with the 49ers paying Aiyuk unless they make him the focal point.
The more I think about it, the more I don't care if it's $30 million a year. Like players get caught up in that, but you can fudge the numbers to make an average contract of $30 million a year. What matters way more is the guaranteed money. How much guaranteed money are you giving them? What percentage of the contract is guaranteed? That to me is the bigger issue. Whatever voodoo they do to get the average per year up to $30 million is secondary. I'd be more concerned with the guaranteed money, but the players and the agents like to have that average per year because that's the number that gets tweeted out. That's the sexy part of it.
Just give them that Amon-Ra St. Brown contract and move on. That's it. That's all you got to do. Super simple. I do think they'll figure it out. The latest thing I read, I don't even know where it was from, but it said it was from a interview with Aiyuk, but I don't know if these exact words came out of his mouth or whose mouth, but they said like, they had a good talk, but they're going to kind of, let the 4th of July weekend go through because apparently nobody works around this time. That's like 4th of July is not till next Thursday. There's no reason you can't be working right now. But they said they'll come back to this after the 4th of July weekend and like get things rolling. So I don't think we're going to hear about a contract extension here until middle of July.
I love it, right? There's a holiday coming up in a week and a half. I can't do any work.
I know. It's absolutely ridiculous. Have you ever tried to apply to jobs around this time? They don't. No one works for the 2 weeks leading up to 4th of July.
So I'm just checking in on a couple people to try and get any info on this Brandon Aiyuk situation, and everything I'm hearing is that it's nothing new, that he's just working out. Don't get your hopes up.
So like what I said,
Yep.
the calm person that's realistic, and you're like, it's happening.
Yeah, sorry. I got excited, okay? I would like for the
You would have
last
heard about this from Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport already if he was already on his way to go sign a contract. Like, we're going to hear about that. Most of the time, we hear about it a whole day before they go in and sign the contract. Unless they're already there for training camp. Like, that's if they're already at practice, then yeah, it's going to happen quickly. But if there's no one in the building, like, you're going to hear about it a whole day or two before he actually goes and signs the thing.
So, like, if he was already going to be at the facility to work out, why did he need to call that extra meeting with the 49ers like a couple days ago? Like, just wait until you go there to work. Whatever. The whole
Well, you don't know who's there. Remember, nobody works around this time. So you got to make sure those people are there. And it's going to be a different meeting from hopefully he dressed nice, and not in your workout clothes.
Yeah, when we were texting, you were like, he's not going to sign his contract. He's going to be dressed up to sign the contract. And then I immediately texted you the picture of when Nick Bosa signed his deal. And he and John Lynch are both in hoodies.
Yeah, I guess that doesn't really matter. But also, Nick Bosa signed it during training camp, right?
No, it was basically like days before the first game of the season.
Yeah. So, but I mean, like during practice, like they're all in practice gear. Like they're in that mode. I think that's different than like you having time to be home, think about your outfit. You're going to take a nice picture. Like I just think it's a little different.
Troll move by Aiyuk to get all of our hopes up.
Well, that's what he's doing, right? He keeps like he's loving this drama. There's a reason he posted that he's going to the facility on Instagram. It's because he wants to get people talking and excited. And he knows, like, if he was going to sign that thing, he would not have put it on Instagram.
Until he gets his deal, this is like the only time where you talk about the 49ers and you're talking about Brandon Aiyuk first, right? You're not talking about Christian McCaffrey or Brock Purdy or Deebo or any of that.
Loving it.
And I totally get it if he's loving that. Now, that said, I'm going to do nothing but talk about Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and other 49ers for basically the rest of the show. Because, Michelle, I have, as you love to mock me, every year, been going through my fantasy football magazines. I've been doing my research. I've been trying to study up for the coming season, even though apparently you are abandoning our fantasy football league, which I had to find out about on Twitter. Thank you very much.
I told you last year.
I don't recall that.
Okay. I told you.
Anyway, I have 5.
I don't play in leagues where people don't set their lineups. I'm too good for that.
Oh, okay. You are a fantasy football snob.
I am, and that's okay.
So I've gone through and I've picked out 5 what I consider to be very surprising, very amazing 49ers stats for the coming season. I have not shown them to you ahead of time. I want to run them past you. I have them arranged from what I think are the least surprising to the most surprising. So as we go down the list, they will get to the things that really kind of made me do a double take, so to speak. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm excited. I'm excited to learn some stuff.
Yeah, I feel like you're going to poop over all of these, but here we go.
I'll be nice.
First one. Only one tight end last year caught more than 6 touchdowns. That blew me away because I look at George Kittle and I was like, he only had 6 touchdowns. Well, there was only one other tight end in the whole league that had more. Do you know who it is, and do you know how many they caught?
Sam Laporta, 8?
10.
10. Okay.
I give you credit. Laporta is correct. He's the only, as a rookie, which is crazy. But
I didn't know if the 10 was including playoffs or not. So, okay, cool.
Unless I say including playoffs, assume not, because I'm usually pretty specific.
Yeah, me too. No, that's me too. But I remembered the 10, but I was like, I think it was 8 in the regular season, 10, whatever. But okay, we're good.
Of the 6 touchdowns that George Kittle had, the average distance for those touchdowns was 30 yards. George Kittle is a freak, man. What a monster. His average touchdown was 30 yards. Dude is a beast, and I want them to throw him the ball more.
But also 3 came in one game.
Right, against the Cowboys.
Yeah. So, they need to throw him. We've been screaming this, right? And I know we're going to get to your debate thing, but in the debate, the guy you're debating said, like, that Shanahan doesn't scheme against defenses, which is the most crazy thing ever, because that's what irritates us, right? It's like he does do that, which makes certain players completely disappear because he's saying, well, if they're going to take this guy out, and that is smart, but for fantasy football, it drives us crazy, right?
Yes. And as you mentioned, I did participate in a debate with Brother Bob yesterday. It was the only debate yesterday worth watching, quite frankly. If you want to see that, that's up on my YouTube channel. You can go and check it out. I'll drop it in the chat. Not now. This is our time, but you can watch it later. So that was the first stat that surprised me, blew me away, and kind of made me a little mad because, yeah, like there's no way that George Kittle should have just 6 touchdowns where 3 of those came in one game. He's too damn good, and I hope they use him more. Number 4 on my top 5 stats, more than a third of Brandon Aiyuk's catches last year went for at least 20 yards. That is staggering to me. 20 yards is a huge chunk of the field, and more than 30% or 33% of his catches went for at least that much. That is how much juice Brandon Aiyuk squeezed out of every single catch last year. It was incredible.
Remember, like every week going into betting, we'd be like, what's Brandon Aiyuk's long, right? Like just bet the over on Brandon Aiyuk's long because it seemed like every game he was hitting that over. Yeah, I mean, Aiyuk is fantastic. And again, like if this is for fantasy, right? Like he just doesn't get the consistent amount of work. So it's all over the place with his fantasy points. But if he ever were to get 130, 140 targets, he would probably be the wide receiver 1 or 2 on the year in fantasy.
He would be up there. I mean, he probably wouldn't be quite as efficient as because when you get a higher volume, you're not going to generally be able to keep that up. But damn, man, 75 catches and more than a third of them went for 20 plus yards. Sometimes we see like we're so used to the machine running with Kyle Shanahan. Like I think that we kind of lose sight of like that's not a normal thing. But everybody takes it for granted, and people like Brother Bob out there just want to ignore it and hand wave it away like, oh, but Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl. It's like, well, look at what is happening. It's pretty crazy.
Ready for a fun stat to go off of this that I just pulled up?
Yes.
So Aiyuk had 28 receptions of 20 plus yards last year. That was only behind 2 people who had 1 more, had 29 each of them. Tyreek Hill and CeeDee Lamb. Brandon Aiyuk had 105 targets on the year. CeeDee Lamb had 181. Tyreek Hill had 171. And Brandon Aiyuk was 3rd in the league on 20 plus yard catches behind only those 2 guys who had 1 more 20-yard catch with 70 more targets on the season.
That's absurd. It is, like I said, it's him squeezing the juice out of the orange. And by the way, it's also a credit to Kyle Shanahan. Like everyone loves to say Brock Purdy benefits from Kyle Shanahan. So does Brandon Aiyuk, okay? Because he's not all those are just purely Brandon Aiyuk getting away from man coverage and getting open. Some of those are Kyle scheming him wide open. It's a combination of both.
And Kittle also led all tight ends with 20 plus yard catches last year too by a large chunk.
I think he has led in average yards per touchdown in like 4 of the last 6 years or something like that. It's comical what he has done. All right. That was number 4. Number 3 on my 5 49er stats to amaze on today's show. No 49ers wide receiver or tight end got 5 targets inside the 10 last year. Not George Kittle, not Deebo Samuel, not Brandon Aiyuk, not even Jawan Jennings, right? Who kind of only really does 1 or 2 things for the team. There were 72 receivers or tight ends across football that got 5 targets inside the 10, and none of them were on the 49ers.
That is a wild stat. Then they spread the ball around the goal line. It's probably why they score so many points, right? Like that's smart to do, but also I think you need a really good quarterback and able to, not focus on just one guy and spread it around. And that's clearly what's happening. And again, like, I don't know if that's a bad stat. I think that's a really good stat, but not for fantasy.
That's a good question. Is that a bad stat or not? I think
not bad for real NFL with the way they're scoring. It would be bad, I guess, if they weren't scoring any points, but they're scoring a ton. They're just spreading around, but bad for fantasy because you want to get those targets for those guys.
I think it would be bad if the person that was getting the majority of the targets was not scoring or was just not any good. But that is not the case for the 49ers because we know if 11's not getting the targets and 85's not getting the targets and 19 is not getting the targets and 15 is not getting the targets, you know who is? 23. Christian McCaffrey, which leads me to the next stat. Including the playoffs, Christian McCaffrey had more red zone touchdowns than Deebo, Aiyuk, and Kittle combined. For an offense that spreads the ball around as much as the 49ers do, when they get inside the 20, it's going to one dude, Christian McCaffrey, over and over and over again.
Do you think that will continue working? I mean, I guess it worked all last year and defenses couldn't figure out how to stop it. So, but do we think that can continue working? And also, why won't they use Kittle more around the goal line?
I don't know why they won't use Kittle more around the goal line. People are claiming that he's getting double teamed or he's not getting open, whatever. I have no idea. I think it would be a bad thing if Christian McCaffrey was just a runner or just a receiver. But because he's so versatile and they can move him around and get him the ball so many different ways, I think it's okay. But man, it is crazy how I think Kyle is just like, I'm not screwing around. I don't want to take a chance that we don't score. We have to kick a field goal. I'm going to 23 one way or another. Come hell or high water, I'm getting the ball in the hands of my best player. More red zone touchdowns than Deebo, Aiyuk, and Kittle combined. That is nuts.
That is wild. I wonder how many other running backs are like that against their wide receivers. I don't know if that's common because, you get both the rushing and the receiving, but yeah, that is pretty wild.
And it'd be one thing if it was like a DJ Moore situation, right? Where he got 44% of the Bears receiving yards last year because they didn't have anybody else. It was basically just him. But you've got an all-pro in Deebo, an all-pro in Kittle, and a really, really good wide receiver in Aiyuk, and they're still not getting the ball. It's all Christian McCaffrey. It's all 23.
So let me ask you sitting there with the 101 in fantasy, are you taking 28-year-old Christian McCaffrey?
Yeah. I mean, I get all the caveats. He's older. He's coming off a lot of touches the last 2 years. But like, especially when I hear these numbers, it's like, how could I possibly go to anybody else? We expect Bijan Robinson to be better. But let's be honest. If Bijan Robinson is as good as we think he could be, he's what Christian McCaffrey is right now. Like that, right? That's the perfect scenario for Bijan Robinson, is that he produces like Christian McCaffrey. Well, how about we just get the guy that's actually doing it?
I think if you don't take Christian McCaffrey 101, you have to take the wide receivers, like a CeeDee Lamb or a Tyreek Hill, like someone that is scoring very close to what Christian McCaffrey is doing at the wide receiver position. You just feel better about them, especially like CeeDee Lamb at his age. He can even like explode more. They added nobody. So I think it would only be between CeeDee Lamb and Christian McCaffrey at 101, but it'd be hard not to just go with the safe CMC pick.
Andre Garibay, YouTube channel member, says if you have the first pick, you have to take Christian McCaffrey. Shout out to Andre and Cynthia and all our YouTube channel members. We really, really appreciate it. Please, if you want to support the show, sign up. It's less than $3 a month. You get custom emojis, membership badges, priority comment response. So please and thank you. If you want to support the show, go ahead and do that. Okay, so we have gone through 4 of my top 5. How do you think they have been so far?
They have been fantastic. You're doing so good, Stats.
There you go. See, that is the kind of positivity and encouragement that I need. Hey, look at that. Brother Bob is here watching the show. We're going to get to the debate a little later, Brother Bob. But I want to finish this up. Okay, this is the number one stat that I saw in all of fantasy that took me by surprise. Only Kyler Murray averaged more yards per scramble last year than Brock Purdy. Kyler Murray, super fast, lightning fast, ultra athletic. Kyler Murray, number 1 in yards per scramble last year. Number 2, baby Bosa Brock Purdy. He needs to do it more, Michelle. He's good at it, and it helps the offense. When I saw that, it just confirmed everything that I had already been hoping for. Use your legs more, Brock.
Use your leg more, Brock, to scramble and run with it, because he was good at it last year when he did do it. But also, weirdly enough, I brought this stat with me on scramble drills. So this is talking about passing on scramble drills. So Brock Purdy was one of 4 quarterbacks to have 100+ passer rating on scramble drills last year, minimum 25 pass attempts. The others were Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen, and then Brock Purdy.
Yeah, so that's a good point. Like, even if he's not running, he's just good off schedule.
Yeah, get out of the pocket, get out. Like, don't force anything if it's not there. Like, you use those legs, and whether you end up passing it at the end of the play or using those legs to gain some yards, like, that's his next way to improve on his game, right? That's where you can take that next step forward.
And he's talked about that with mobility and wanting to improve there. If you're wondering, Kyler averaged 10.1 yards per scramble last year. Again, that was the best in the league. Brock at number 2 was at 8.9. So basically 9 yards a scramble for Brock. 9 freaking yards. I want to live in a world where I have one of the best offensive play callers in the league calling plays. And if, like everybody, once in a while you get in a bad spot where your play doesn't match up with the defense, then we have a quarterback that can either make plays with his arm off schedule or just take off and run. Like, yes, please. That is the offensive world. That was the hope with Trey Lance, right? That's what you were going to get with Trey Lance, a guy that could do both of those things. And they have it in Brock Purdy.
And that's exactly the difference between when you're talking about Brock Purdy versus Jimmy Garoppolo versus Tua Tagovailoa, like, and you say, well, they're just in a right system. It's like, yeah, yes, the system helps Brock Purdy, but then you dig into all the things he does when it does fall apart, and he's still able to be one of the best in the league. Like, he's still able to make those special plays. And that's the difference between him and other system quarterbacks. Like, he is not just a system quarterback. Yes, he follows the system and he does it perfectly, but he's also able to play out of structure while those other guys cannot.
JCG 1987 says, can you imagine a Kyler versus Brock scramble off? It looks like a daycare trying to wrangle toddler. It's funny and mean, but the funny outweighed the mean, so I decided to read it on the show. Which of those was your favorite of all the 5? And again, I'll let me just recap them real quick. Only one tight end caught more than 6 touchdowns last year, and it was Sam Laporta. More than a third of Brandon Aiyuk's catches went for 20-plus yards. No 49ers wide receiver or tight end got 5 targets inside the 10-yard line last year. Including playoffs, Christian McCaffrey had more red zone touchdowns than Deebo, Aiyuk, and Kittle combined. And he had 5 more, by the way, because he had 21 on the season. Or only Kyler Murray averaged more yards per scramble than Brock Purdy last year.
I think it's a toss-up between the Brandon Aiyuk 20-plus receptions, because that's just insane what he did. And then also that none of them received more than 5 targets in the red zone, because especially for fantasy, that scares me deeply, right? You need those touchdowns if they're not getting those opportunities. And like, why would that change? Because if anything, they've added more talent, not taken it away. So they'll probably be spread apart even more. So that I have been kind of off of 49ers players outside of Christian McCaffrey for fantasy. And I think that note right there says volumes as to why I am.
I wonder if injury will be the thing that changes it, right? Because Christian McCaffrey goes down, especially, obviously that will have to change it. But even if he doesn't, right? Like, they're going to load up on Christian McCaffrey in the red zone next year. If Deebo goes down, then all of a sudden you've got Aiyuk and Kittle who are just going to have to get more by default. Or Aiyuk goes down and it'll be Deebo and Kittle getting more by default. Like, I think injury will be the only thing that will change it, because I think that Kyle just thinks, screw it. Let's just give it to Christian. He scores pretty much every time. And to defend Kyle, he does pretty much score every time. So I get it.
But with you being like Christian McCaffrey goes down, like, I do think if that happens, I'd be so interested to see which players stepped up the most in that situation, right? Because would it be Deebo, since he plays most similarly to him, right? The most similar role with the short catches, and he would take over the rushing. Would they finally be like, you know what? We're going to become pass heavy, and we're going to focus on Brandon Aiyuk and get him, like, use him like a true wide receiver one. Like, I'm interested in what approach they would take if Christian McCaffrey did go down, because I don't think you could just say, well, we're just going to keep the same plan. We're just going to run it with our backups. Like, I don't think that would work as well, at least. So that'd be really interesting to see, but hopefully that does not happen ever.
I don't think that it will, because I remember when before Christian McCaffrey got there, Troy Aikman was talking about, and it was against the Rams. It was right before Deebo had that insane catch and run touchdown against the Rams. Like, literally, he was finishing this thought as that play was going on. And Aikman said that Kyle told him he doesn't have the type of running back on the roster to run the kind of offense he wants to run. Lo and behold, they get Christian McCaffrey, and all of a sudden he does. But if McCaffrey goes down, I don't think Kyle looks at Elijah Mitchell or Isaac Guerendo or JP Mason or Cody Schrader and says, we could do what we do with Christian McCaffrey with any of those guys. So it will change. How it will change, I don't know. but I don't think he has faith in anybody else besides 23.
It's interesting though, like more that now that he's getting older and he has a lot of wear and tear on his body, like how much longer can he hold this up? And like I'm wondering what their game plan is after Christian McCaffrey. Like, do they try to find the next CMC in the next couple of years to have that backup plan because he's been such a huge part of this offense and how they're doing it? And like once Christian McCaffrey got there, they were already good, right? But he just took them to that next level. I know you cannot just find Christian McCaffrey's, but I wonder if they're going to start trying to do that in the next couple of years once he's like starting to hit almost 30 years old.
Yes, please. Like, obviously, if you could do that, do that. But it's easier said than done. And just a reminder, as I said yesterday, since Shanahan has been hired, only two offenses have scored more touchdowns than the 49ers, and only 5 offenses have gained more yards. And that includes the 3 crappy years with Shanahan, 2017, 2018, and 2020. And even with those down years, they still have those kind of numbers. So Kyle knows what he's doing offensively.
Yes. The one thing we can both agree on is that he's definitely a fantastic offensive coach, right? And I have definitely given him a lot of crap for the way he handles some game management or team or player situations, right? Like I don't know if he's like the perfect head coach in terms of some situations with that. And then also Brandon Stanley. Oh my God, Brandon Staley joining now. That worries me too, right? Because that was his biggest issues with game management. So I'm worried about those two together. But Shanahan is top notch offensive play caller. There's no denying that.
I think that Staley's going to even Kyle out. I think that you have one person that's scared all the time, one person that wants to go for it all the time, and that together, hopefully you can get one competent game management decision maker.
Yeah, except they're going to be like arguing over it in the game because neither one is going to want to do what the other person wants to do. And then it's just going to be a whole other disaster.
It's not even like Kyle has to become Brandon Staley. Just go for it a little more. And I feel like it would help so much. Like, just a little more. If it's 4th and 1, don't rush the punt team out on the field just because, or rush Jake Moody out on the field to kick a field goal. Like, damn, man, just a little more. And that's why I was so encouraged that he went for it late in the 4th quarter in the Super Bowl. I thought like, oh, maybe he's finally gotten it. And then, of course, no, he turtled back up before. Like, he doesn't need to make that much progress for, I think, it to make a big difference on the field.
And the thing is, I hear so often like, well, we don't have to go for it because we have a good defense. But I think that's a bigger reason to go for it if you have a good defense, right? You go for it, you don't get it. You have a good defense that there's a good chance you're still going to be able to hold them. And that maybe, yes, the other team gets to score a field goal because they have a shorter field. But that's why you would feel better. Like if you have a terrible defense and you know you're not, if you don't get this first down, like they're just going to allow a touchdown right away. Like then you would be more nervous. I don't get that take where you're like, well, we just trust our defense. Well, if you trusted them, then you would trust them to stop them if you failed, right?
The plan either way is for your defense to stop them, whether you kick the field goal or whether you go for it. So what are you worried about? Like, to me, there's no, if your defense is bad, you should go for it anyway because you're going to allow the other team to score. And if your defense is good, you should go for it anyway because you're going to plan on stopping them. So to me, there's just no reason not to do it. I don't know who he needs to talk to. Maybe it's Brandon Staley. Maybe Staley is afraid to bring that up because he's just happy to have a job. I don't know. But I'm hoping that it has a positive effect. And that's my story.
They need to start doing the tush push. Brock Purdy's got the thighs. Start doing that tush push.
He's not really that great on quarterback sneaks. If you go watch him, he doesn't get down. He's very upright. Now, like you said, he's got those beastly legs, so that helps. But like he's definitely not as good at it as Jimmy Garoppolo. That's not his thing. It's worked, but it's real scary when he does it, I have to say.
Also, Jake Brendle's not the center that you're like feeling super confident about in that situation.
Right. Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see if the Eagles can still do it now that Jason Kelsey's not going to be there. And as Justin points out, he got a concussion on a quarterback sneak last year, did Brock Purdy. And we know Kyle ain't going to want to do that, putting his guy in position to get hurt. I mean, hell.
Quarterback sneaks just work all the time, though. Like, it is so rare that they get stopped. I know that they get stopped sometimes, but it's just such a good probability you're going to get it. Anytime the Steelers or the 49ers are like an inch away, right? Like just fall forward. Just fall forward. You're going to get it.
Yeah, as long as the offense knows when it's going to snap the ball, which it knows every single time, it's really hard to stop a guy from falling forward and gaining the yard for the first down. Like it's almost impossible. So
Yeah.
I totally get why teams do it. All right, Michelle, let's get to it because here comes Brother Bob chiming in. I do appreciate you watching the show. As I said yesterday during the debate, I appreciate all the support, Bob, even if we disagree. But Bob says it'd be nice if Kyle Levy could score the most touchdowns in Super Bowls. Of course it would. Like, no one's denying that. That's the thing. It's like, who are you arguing with? No one is denying that it would be nice if they scored the most touchdowns in Super Bowls. We all want them to win a Super Bowl. Like, no one is out there being like, I hope the 49ers don't win a Super Bowl. That was the weirdest part about the debate yesterday for me, Michelle. It's like, I felt like I was arguing against somebody that doesn't exist.
Listen, it's really, really hard to win a Super Bowl, right? And you said that during the debate. And pretty much, if you look back the last, 20 years, you're going to see Bill Belichick's name over and over and over. And then now Andy Reid's name over and over and over. And it's because they had Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, the best two quarterbacks ever to exist, probably. But this is also the thing. So I feel like everyone's really, I know, like I'll give notes about Shanahan not winning these Super Bowls, blah, blah, blah. And it is a little scary, but at the same time, he got them there, which is huge. You could have a Mike Tomlin who, wins regular season games. Sometimes he wins half of them and then never wins a playoff game. So that's way, way worse. Like I'd much rather a coach that can get our team to the NFC Championship, to the Super Bowl. Like he is clearly a good coach because he's able to go deep in the playoffs over and over and over again. Like that, let's set that straight. Now, with the Super Bowls, I don't know. I think he's just really unlucky. I do just think it comes down to luck. There's so many plays. And even if you go through all of Patrick Mahomes' wins in Super Bowls, it's like he could so easily have 0 right now. But it's just, yeah, you can say, yeah, he's extremely clutch and he is. And maybe it's all because of him. But he's also had to get so extremely lucky to win all of his too, because just one bounce of a ball could be the difference between having all the Super Bowls or none of them. And that's really what it's come down to for Mahomes.
It's both. Part of it is circumstance and part of it is Kyle's decision making. I've never hidden from that. I saw that's the other thing too, is like I have criticized Kyle Shanahan, but just because you can criticize someone doesn't mean they're not great. Like that is the weirdest part for me. Criticism of somebody doesn't mean you hate them, doesn't mean you want them fired, any of that. It just means, hey, there are parts of this that could be better, which by the way, Brother Bob, who I was arguing against, didn't want Kyle Shanahan fired. Wonder why, right? If all that matters is him not winning the Super Bowls and he hasn't won a Super Bowl, why wouldn't you fire him yet, Bob? So again, I felt like none of this was logical.
And also, like the quarterbacks he has had, I don't like even getting to the Super Bowl with a Jimmy Garoppolo. Like that is so impressive, right? It's so impressive. And like if Brock Purdy would have won a Super Bowl last year, he would have broken all of the records for the youngest player to do it. Like it would have been crazy, right? Or it would have been up there as one of the youngest, I guess. I don't have that off the top of my head. I don't remember if Ben won it younger, but either way, like these young players don't win them yet. And it's like we're giving Kyle Shanahan crap for having a second-year quarterback, who, by the way, was really his first year, in getting that quarterback and this team to the Super Bowl in overtime against the best quarterback of our generation and losing in overtime. And we're like, oh, he can never win one. Because he lost with a first-year pretty much quarterback in the Super Bowl in overtime, now he can never win one. Like, come on. That's craziness.
I agree. All we know for sure is that he hasn't won one. That's it. We don't know if he'll ever get to one again. We don't know if he'll ever win it again. By the way,
but I thought you made a great point too on the debate. Like you brought up players who hadn't won one in a while and they seem like choke artists, right? The Michael Jordans but like even Peyton Manning, how long was he a choke artist in the playoffs before he started winning them? LeBron James could not win a finals forever. And then he swooped them all up really quickly there. But like this happens with players. It happens with coaches. It's just like, you can't ding a man because he keeps getting to the NFC Championship in the Super Bowl. Like you can't ding him for that.
For the record, Ryan Hensley, who moderated the debate, put up a poll on Twitter afterwards. Who won the debate? There's still time left if you want to go and vote. There's about 43 minutes left if you're watching this live. I am dominating the poll. 64.6% of people that voted in the poll said I won. If I was a president, we would call that a landslide victory. It would be called a mandate. Okay. I think it was clear who won the debate, and you can watch for yourselves. Again, not now. This is our time. And let's get to this comment, because Bob said this in the debate yesterday, and I disagree with it. The Sentinels football channel says Kyle Shanahan needs to be demoted. Shanahan deserves to be raked through the coals. Bob said he wants things taken off Kyle Shanahan's plate. Well, like what? You say you don't like Kyle Shanahan, the GM, yet they have the best roster in the league. So we're going to take that power away from him? That doesn't make any sense to me. He's the offensive coordinator. They scored more touchdowns last year than any offense in the league. And as I said, only 2 have scored more touchdowns since he was hired. So you want to take that away from him? Like, I don't understand the criticisms here of all the jobs he has when he's good at all of them.
I think he's gotten lucky a lot as GM. I do think he should take, the GM stuff as we move forward. I think the luck will kind of go the other way. And we've been seeing it, right? He's been missing on a lot of draft picks lately. And I know he got extremely, extremely lucky with the Brock Purdy pick.
Yes.
But he has been missing on a lot of draft picks, cannot hit on a third rounder to save his, third rounder right now to save his life. And now I know he hasn't had a lot of early picks, but that's because he needed Trey Lance. He needed him, and he gave up the world to go get him, and then never gave him a shot. So I do think there's a lot of questionable things that he's done, mostly as GM, and then, not wanting Tom Brady. I know you guys brought this all up in the debate, but there are definitely questionable things that he's done. And I think he just got so incredibly lucky with Brock Purdy. And truly, you could say, well, he must have saw something that other teams didn't. If he did see that, he would have been worried about him falling to the very last pick. He would have taken him in the 6th round, right? Or if he actually saw something in Brock Purdy where he's like, I need this dude, he wouldn't have waited to the very last pick in the draft and not been worried that any other team saw something in him. So I think he just really lucked into Brock Purdy. And yeah, that's some luck right there.
He did luck into Brock Purdy, but he's also a huge part of the reason Brock Purdy has played so well. So again, multiple things can be true. And Bob, before you take a victory lap, I was talking about all the different jobs Kyle Shanahan has. As a head coach, he is great. I was talking about the offense. I was talking about him as a GM. Like, calm down. Cool your jets there, buddy. I'm just stunned that people want to bash this guy. Like, it is crazy. And again, there's things to criticize, but saying he should be fired, Bob asked me at the end, or Ryan asked me as the moderator, should Kyle Shanahan, when will you get to the point with Kyle Shanahan where you would fire him? And I said, as long as he keeps making championship games and Super Bowls, I'm never firing him. That's all you can ask for of your head coach, is that he gives you a chance to win the big game. What are we doing here? Did people forget the stiff coaches that this organization has had over the years and all the stiff coaches around the league that exist? I'm stunned by
who are you replacing him with?
Right.
There's no one to replace him with, and you keep making it there. You know how hard it is for teams to make it to the NFC Championship over and over and over again. That's very rare what the 49ers are doing. It doesn't just happen. And it's, what do you even think about moving on from him if he keeps doing this? Even if he makes the next 4 Super Bowls and they lose them all, it's going to be extremely frustrating, right? And right. I guess if he gets blown out in all of them, maybe you're like, okay, he cannot handle the Super Bowl apparently. But if he keeps being close games and just one thing goes against them, you just stick with that coach because the other coaches aren't doing that.
Daza says Ben Johnson. Okay, Daza, give me one shred of evidence that Ben Johnson can do what Kyle Shanahan has done. Give me one shred of evidence. And by the way, you want to criticize Kyle Shanahan for losing leads in the playoffs. Ben Johnson just lost the biggest lead in the history of the NFC Championship game.
That's not his fault. I mean, his wide receivers just dropped balls. That was real bad.
Whoa, it's not his fault, but it's Kyle's fault, right? Kyle Shanahan.
When do we say it's Kyle's fault? Maybe what's his name? Bob?
Yeah,
maybe
Brother Bob.
Bob has said it's Kyle's fault, but I don't think most 49ers fans say it's Kyle's fault when they put up a lot of points and then they the defense gives up a lot. But this is the thing, when you have to realize how lucky the 49ers were in that Lions game, where what's his name? Who is the wide receiver? Give me a second. Who was the second wide receiver on that team last year?
On the Lions?
Yeah.
I don't know, but why? He dropped the ball on third down?
2 of them. He dropped 2 balls that were no one was even close to him, and the ball was thrown well on huge plays. If those 2 are caught, you could say that about any game, right? If you change things, it'll be different. But like that's not on Ben Johnson. He was calling these guys wide open. He was getting these guys open in the best opportunities and the biggest moments, and his guys just drop balls. That's not on Ben Johnson. But also, I'm with you. Why would you change out Kyle Shanahan for Ben Johnson? You have no idea how he would be as a head coach. You have zero idea, especially as a GM. Like, he doesn't have any of that experience. He could be the worst head coach ever. We have no idea. We've seen really great offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators completely fail as head coaches. And you cannot say Kyle Shanahan has completely failed. He's been one of the best head coaches. No one can be perfect. And Kyle Shanahan's not perfect, is all we're saying. But he's still one of the best.
He's so far from failing. That is the thing. People are treating a Super Bowl loss like a 2-13 season. Like those are the same thing. They're not even in the same universe. That's the crazy thing to me. Corey Soto says Kyle and company built a phenomenal roster. The question for me now is, can they build another? That'll determine his fate. Yeah, I think that's fair. But you know what? I think they've earned a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, considering they did build this roster. Like, that has to count for something. Yet we are at this point, and where there are these trolls like Brother Bob and this other dude Ezra on Twitter, where all they say is Kyle Shanahan didn't win a Super Bowl. Kyle Shanahan didn't win a Super Bowl. It's like they're stuck on this one thing. And yeah, Super Bowls are important, and we all understand that. But when you get to the point where you are with Kyle, where everything else is great, and the only thing left to criticize him for is not winning the Super Bowl, like, you have to appreciate that that's where you are. And I know that's hard for people to do both of those things at the same time, but I feel like we should be mature enough and grown up enough to do it.
And Nick Ellert just asked an amazing question. He said, who has failed more, Matt LaFleur or Kyle Shanahan? And I think that's perfect, right? Because 2 really good coaches, and you would not say either one should ever be even considered on a hot seat or anything, but It's LaFleur. Like, easily, he had Aaron Rodgers, one of the best quarterbacks also of our generation, right? And how many times did they fail in the playoffs to the 49ers, by the way? But they kept falling apart in the playoffs, and they fell apart again last year to the playoff or to the 49ers. Now, this was with Jordan Love, and I think he did a really good job in his first year coaching with Jordan Love. Like, that's all should be appreciated there for him. Like, he's a good coach, but definitely his failures with Aaron Rodgers are way more concerning with anything that Kyle Shanahan has done.
And I could argue that Matt LaFleur is getting worse, right? 13-3, 13-3, 13-4, then 8-9, a losing record, and then 9-8 last year. Kyle Shanahan just got to the Super Bowl last year. He's not getting worse. So again, I get the frustration and the criticism, and I'm right there with you. You can see it on my face, and you could hear it after the Super Bowl. Go watch the instant reaction show. It's up there on YouTube. Like, the proof is there. But also, simply saying Kyle didn't win a Super Bowl, so he should be fired, is ridiculous to me. And you're just trolling at that point. I really do.
Honestly, is he just trolling right now? Because he just wrote, the Rams have a ring because of Kyle. The Rams have a ring because Jaquiski Tart. I mean, straight up. That's it. And there's a reason why Tart's not in the league anymore, because I was saying he was a garbage safety forever. And he was never going to be picked up by anybody. And he lasted for 0.5 seconds off the 49ers roster.
The Sentinels football channel says Sean McVay won a Super Bowl before his teacher. Yeah, they got the quarterback that Kyle was going after, and they won a Super Bowl. They also didn't have to face Patrick Mahomes, might I add. Credit to them. That's why I put Sean McVay above Kyle Shanahan as a head coach.
And they barely beat the Bengals. If they're facing Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, they wouldn't have.
The 49ers beat the Bengals that year, by the way. Just throwing that out.
And again, the only reason the Rams won that, and we're even there, is because Jaquiski Tart just, couldn't catch something that 99% of the world could catch.
Yeah, I don't know if that seals the game. There was still 10 minutes left in the game when he dropped that interception, because people forget that. Certainly would have put the 49ers in a good position. But then again, I saw the 49ers be in a good position the first possession of the second half of the Super Bowl, and they didn't get any points out of it. So who knows what could have happened?
No, Jaquiski Tartt is to blame, and I will never not blame him, and I'll never not hate him for that.
And again, the Sentinel Football Channel. I have blamed Kyle Shanahan. I have said that he's the reason they don't have 2 Super Bowls. He's the reason that everything good happened and the biggest reason they don't have 2 Super Bowls. Again, no one is saying Kyle Shanahan is blameless. Like, I don't know why people don't understand this. I don't know how to explain it any differently. Am I doing something?
He's not perfect. That's all that we have to say. He's not perfect, but there's no reason that anyone would ever want him not to be the head coach of the 49ers.
And we're sitting here with a 24-year-old quarterback who has done nothing but improve since he's become the starter. He has gotten to the conference championship game at least every year that he's been a starter. They still have a roster that is full of good players. And now you want to change the head coach? Like, what? This is the perfect time. You could argue the 49ers are about to begin another championship window because of the quarterback. So I don't understand where people are coming from in that one.
Listen, they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. They're going, what did I say? What would it have to be? 17 plus 3. So they're going 20-0. And everyone will be keeping their mouth shut after that historical season.
That's right. It's Michelle's bold prediction that the 49ers are going to have an undefeated season and win the Super Bowl. You also at one point said that Brock Purdy is going to win 3 Super Bowls, which if they had won last year, I would be sitting there like, holy crap, you might be right. Like, I would have really started to think like maybe Michelle just made one of the greatest predictions of all time.
I think I still did. I mean, people lose Super Bowls, right? It happens, and then they go on and win 3. Tom Brady has lost Super Bowls. Patrick Mahomes has lost Super Bowls or Super Bowl.
I was trying to think.
That will be the only Super Bowl that Brock Purdy loses.
Ooh, that's another bold statement. I was trying to think which quarterbacks lost their first Super Bowl appearance and then went on to win a Super Bowl, which obviously is what has happened with Brock Purdy. At least he lost his first appearance. And I'm thinking Len Dawson, I think, with the Chiefs, lost in Super Bowl 1 and then won in Super Bowl 4. I think
what
Roger.
Manning? I remember him being like
No, Manning won his first Super Bowl appearance against the Bears.
He just couldn't get there for a long time.
Right. I want to say Roger Staubach. Didn't they lose to the Colts in Super Bowl 5? If I'm thinking correctly, was that Roger Staubach or was that Craig Morton? That's the only thing I can't remember off the top of my head. But
I will say there has never been a quarterback to play a Super Bowl 25 years or under, lose that Super Bowl, and then ever go on and win one. Now, the list of guys who've won a Super Bowl at 25 years or younger isn't a super long list, but the list, they have never went on to win one. That's the only research note I remember in my head about that.
I know that Elway lost his multiple Super Bowls before winning 2, obviously, at the end of his career. But there aren't many that lose their first and then go on to win one. But that doesn't mean that you can't. Again, like, none of this is a normal thing. What the 49ers, the team success they have had, it almost never happens in the history of the NFL. What Christian McCaffrey has been able to do and staying healthy and being on the field almost never happens. Like, yeah, you might need something crazy to happen, but sometimes that's what it takes. I mean, Nick Foles beat Tom Brady in a Super Bowl. Weird stuff happens. That's what you might need at this point.
I think if the Super Bowl was like best of 3, right? I think they win last year.
No, that's what I said too. I was like, in a 1-game scenario, we saw the Mavericks kick the hell out of the Celtics in 1 game in the NBA Finals, and the Celtics kicked their ass the rest of the thing. But in a 1-game scenario, sometimes that happens. But nobody wants to acknowledge that, right? No, we can't ever acknowledge that. That doesn't matter. Get it done. We're going to
ignore. This is the only sport that is just one and done, right? So typically, I will say a lot of the times that teams who win the Super Bowl, they weren't the best team that year. They just were on a hot run. They played a great game. Like, a lot of the times you're going to get not the best team winning the Super Bowl. You tell me that Tom Brady plays against that Eagles team, even like best of 3, in 2017, he probably destroys them most games, right? But Nick Foles played out of his goddamn mind for one game. Like it was it was amazing. I never enjoyed watching a game probably more in my life. Seeing Tom Brady like losing to Nick Foles was such a good day. But like we have to remember the Super Bowl is not always the best team. It's really, really hard to win. You have to have luck. You have to have luck. And Patrick Mahomes was born with amazing talent, amazing gift at being clutch, but also with the most amazing luck. And now also talk about luck. His sister-in-law, wait, no, not his sister-in-law. Sorry. I was thinking Kelsey and but one of his best friends is now going to be marrying Taylor Swift. Like he gets to hang out with Taylor Swift. Talk about lucky life. Like the luckiest of lives.
Wait, are they engaged?
No, but they will be.
Are you like reporting this or what? This is
No, I feel like they're probably already engaged, just haven't announced it. But either way, they're getting married.
Yeah, as if things aren't going well enough for Patrick Mahomes, right? Great.
Him and his wife get to hang out with Kelsey and Taylor Swift. Like, come on. Like that dude has lived a gifted life.
Definitely born with a horseshoe up his ass, for sure.
His dad was a professional baseball player. I'm sure that was a nice little upbringing. Like,
and getting drafted to, Andy Reid, like the fact that you have matched up with the greatest offensive mind of his generation in Andy Reid, like it was the stars aligned, man. Doesn't let Shanahan off the hook. But again,
I will say, I went into that game last year, that Super Bowl game, and I was saying, there is no way Taylor Swift is going to lose. She does not lose. Taylor Swift does not lose anything. Her team will not lose. That was my biggest concern going into that game. And I feel like if Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce weren't dating, they would not have went on that run. But there is something all the gods look over Taylor Swift, and they were not going to lose with her on the sideline.
Well, then that's it. Job one this offseason is to somehow break them up. Like we can't have this anymore. This is enough. We have seen enough Kansas City Chiefs, man. No, come on now. And for all the people that are out there ripping Kyle, what will you do if he wins a Super Bowl? Like, what are you going to do? What's your criticism going to be then? All they do is tweet about Kyle hasn't won a Super Bowl. Kyle hasn't won a Super Bowl. If he wins the Super Bowl, then what? That was the best part Steve Young said about winning a Super Bowl. He said, all you take as a quarterback is criticism all the time, constantly, no matter what you do. It's always about what you haven't done, what you can't do. And then you win the Super Bowl, and the next day, it's silence because nobody can say anything. And he said that was the best part, was just the silence.
I'm sure that's exactly how Andy Reid felt, right? Like that was his biggest mark on his resume. It's like everyone understood he was a good coach, good offensive coordinator type of play caller, but he never won a Super Bowl. So I'm sure as soon as he won that, and it has stopped afterwards now, right? Everyone's saying Andy Reid's one of the best coaches of all time now. It just took him getting Patrick Mahomes and winning some Super Bowls to shut everyone up. And that's what Shanahan's going to have to do. If he wants people to shut up about it, then go win one.
Justin says they'll expect him to win 2 in 1 year. Probably.
Well, it's the same thing if Brock Purdy puts up 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards. It won't be because of Brock Purdy.
Right. And if they don't win the Super Bowl, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't count. Even though the year Patrick Mahomes threw 50 touchdowns, he didn't win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
We will see. But hopefully all will be resolved. Hopefully we are living in that world where they do go back to the Super Bowl and they do win it, especially if they happen to beat Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. That would be like, if you're talking about the perfect of all perfect scenarios, it would be getting back to the Super Bowl this year, playing Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid this year, and coming from behind in the fourth quarter to ultimately win. I feel like that would wipe out all of these Shanahan narratives in one bold stroke.
Yeah, I don't want to see the Chiefs in the Super Bowl anymore. So I don't want that to happen. No more. They've had enough. They don't need to make it again.
Would you rather see Mahomes in the Super Bowl and lose, or would you rather see him never get to another Super Bowl?
Oh, never get to another Super Bowl. That'd be crazy.
It wouldn't matter. He's a Hall of Famer.
Right? Oh, yeah. But that would be crazy if he never got to another one. That would be absolutely wild. That's not going to happen.
That could very well happen, right? Nobody would have said Dan Marino was never going to get to another Super Bowl after his 1984 season when they got their ass kicked by the Niners in the Super Bowl. But guess what? That happened. Like, again, it's really, really hard to get there. This is
the issue where I think that it's so impossible to believe that he could never get to a Super Bowl again, right? Because of how bad the Chiefs were in the regular season last year. And
Offensive.
it's not like they're one of the worst teams in the league, but like how bad they were compared to what they normally are. Like they just looked not even close to what they typically were. And you're like, oh, we're not like teams shouldn't even be worried about them in the playoffs, right? Like actually going into the playoffs as a Steelers fan, they had to end up facing the Bills, but I was like, I wouldn't mind facing the Chiefs in round one because they're not as strong as they typically are. And then they still went to the Super Bowl and still won. And that's where it's like, they're just going to make this every year. Cause even if they don't look that good in the regular season, it doesn't matter.
I totally get that. And that's where I am. Like, until they don't get to the AFC Championship, I'm going to pick them to get back there every year. The AFC is freaking loaded, man. Loaded with good teams. And
yeah, but his division sucks. So they're going to win the division, going to make the playoffs, and that's all that matters. That's all that matters.
Yeah,
like, I mean, all that, like, just getting once they're in there, they put on this whole different mindset, and they're so hard to beat. Like, they're going to make the playoffs every single year until someone in their division steps up. But they have two of the worst teams in the AFC in their own division, and then the Chargers always stink, and I don't expect them to be good either.
I'm fascinated by the Chargers. You got Jim Harbaugh there, who is known for being able to jumpstart a team. I mean, his first year in 2011, coming off a lockout, and he takes the Niners to the NFC Championship game with Alex freaking Smith. Like, damn, he knows how to get a team motivated and up and running. And the Chargers have good players. They have an incredibly good quarterback.
They don't have a running back or a wide receiver. Or tight end.
Running back is whatever. Like, you can find somebody. And God knows that Jim's going to run the ball. But I'm fascinated to see what they look like this year. And I like that they're in the AFC. So I don't like, because I like Jim Harbaugh as a head coach. I'm kind of like, I'd like to see him do well. And I would certainly like to see the Chiefs have some competition in the damn division. But I don't know what
we'll get a Steelers 49ers Super Bowl. Russell Wilson versus the 49ers.
See, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't need to see Russ in any more.
Listen, if the Steelers ever ended up somehow making the Super Bowl, that means Russell Wilson came back to life to his Seattle days and is playing out of his mind because that's the only way they're getting there. So yeah, that would be a little bit scary because Russ was pretty good against 49ers.
Pretty good. He kicked their ass all the time. It was misery. It was misery watching that. I know I would not want to, like, even though I think the 49ers are a much better team, that I would have nightmares before that Super Bowl because I've seen the scars, man, of Russ.
And don't you wish the 49ers were playing the Steelers in week 1 this year instead of when they played Kenny freaking Pickett? God
damn it. No, I like the idea of beating Aaron Rodgers in the regular season. So I'll sign for the Jets. I just wish it wasn't on Monday, so we don't have to wait an extra day.
No, that absolutely stinks. Like, you have to wait this whole offseason for your game, and then you have to wait till Monday when everyone else's games is on Sunday or Thursday, Friday at this point.
Exactly. And I'm just going to sit there on that Thursday and just be like, the 49ers should be in this damn game. They should be the ones raising the banner. It should have happened. It should have happened twice.
I'm surprised they didn't make that the kickoff game.
Niners Chiefs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Niners have a lot of good games on the schedule.
Oh, well, it's because it's playing in San Francisco. Never mind. That makes sense.
Is it? They're not going to Kansas City?
No, I'm pretty sure the game's in San Francisco.
You are correct. It is in San Francisco. Yeah.
So that's why they're going to do that.
Yeah. You're not going to have the Niners opening on the road. All right. Anything else you want to mention before we wrap it up?
Negative
Ghost Rider. All right. That's going to do it for this edition of the show. Please rate, review, and follow the Gold Standard Podcast Network. Again, if you want to check out the quarterback debate, I dropped it in the chat. It's up on the YouTube channel. You can go and watch it. It was fun. There were no personal attacks or anything like that in there. We kept everything above board. And again, as I said, it was the only debate yesterday worth watching. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. We're here every single weekday for you. 49ers in 5 will be coming back once training camp starts up, so you'll have daily 49ers news updates. Michelle, it's Friday, and you are a very social and young person, so I know you have plans tonight. What are you doing?
Well, I had a wild weekend last weekend because my sister was in town, so it should be a more calm weekend, but I do have kickball tonight, so we'll be going to play kickball. I will say, if anyone wants to leave a review, because we're not getting as many reviews because it's July, right? If you want to leave a review and ask me like any question, any research question you want me to look up, I'll do some, I can get that done before the show and answer your question. But we need some reviews, people, please. And thank you.
All right. I like that. I promise we'll read it on the show. So
And I will answer anything you write as long as it's acceptable.
right. We're not Ron Burgundy over here. We will draw some limits, but please do that. It's a great way to support the show. If you've gotten any value from anything we have said, please go and do that. I'm going to probably watch The Bear. Keep watching season 3 of The Bear. Do you watch The Bear?
No, I'm watching Love Island right now. Fantastic.
Okay. I just lost.
There's a new episode of Love Island every single day of the week, including Saturday and Sunday, except for Wednesday. So there's like 36 episodes in one season, and it's crazy. Love Island is so much fun. I've never even heard of The Bear, but is it good?
What? You've never heard of The Bear?
No.
How? They won like every friggin' award possible.
What streaming channel is it on?
Hulu.
Okay. What is it about?
It's about a restaurant and a chef, and this guy's out of his mind. But it's unlike anything else on television. You have to go watch it.
Okay. It's not a reality show?
No. Reality television is garbage.
It's my favorite. I love garbage TV.
Okay. Have a good weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you.
Bye, y'all.